So first of all, thank you for having us today. The Sioux Council and Boy Scouts in the Boy Scout camp down in Yankton was founded in 1957 and has had a long history of being on the river. Scouting has a huge history of canoeing and kayaking and water sports. Our council is one of the few councils that also has jet skis and ATVs available. With our access to the river, the jet skis make a great addition to that. We had, this will be the 20th year of the Mr. Hab Trek, but even before that, way back in the 1970s, the Boy Scouts actually helped found the Missouri River National Waterway as a national recreation area, recognized by the Scouts. So the Scouts can earn what's called the 50 Miler Award on that, and then they can also earn a Trails Award for being on the river and also doing service. So last year we had some struggles, of course, through COVID. The flood changed the original trek quite a bit when a lot of the sandbars that they would stay in and the campgrounds that they would stay at were all washed away during the big flood. And so last year we counted it as a new beginning for the Mr. Hab Trek. And I was able to work with Bob Foley and a couple other members of the Canoe and Kayak Association, and we came up with what we think is a really great trek for our scouts to get into the river, to practice leave no trace camping, and use those leave no trace skills to enhance conservation and preservation along the Missouri River, and really get them into knowing what the river is all about. So this year will be the 20th anniversary of the river. I'm actually the outgoing trek director. Hopefully we'll have a new one. But for right now, this is the trek that we have. So it's 63 miles. And we leave at the beach at Lewis and Clark. So scouts come in on Sunday. They stay with their unit for check-in, swim checks. We do a paddle skills check to make sure that their skills are such that the Missouri River will be a safe trek for them. We teach them how to pack their canoe for a long trek. Most of our scouts have canoe. They have a canoeing merit badge that they take. But the idea of being on the river for multiple days, they need to figure out how you put equipment into the canoe and not flip it one way or the other. And lose everything, how to tie everything in, so if you do get that flip, it all stays with you versus floating elsewhere. There is a water jug somewhere on the Missouri at this point that got away from one of the groups. So it's a 63-mile trek from the beach at Lewis and Clark. We do a pull-out around the dam, and then we put them back in. That happens at Midway Beach. We found that worked just spectacularly. So we pulled them out, they portaged, they got the idea of portaging from that point. They also found out that carrying a lot of equipment on a portage is not all that much fun. Portage it up to the parking lot, they reattach the canoes there, and then go around, and we put them back in the river just below the dam. They do practice leave no trace backcountry camping, so this is their first opportunity to really not be able to get to a car. So it's a great opportunity for them to figure out how to do that leave no trace camping. They do a backpacking stove or a small stove, so no open fires. They get a chance to work with the National Park Service. And then on Goat Island, they do conservation service there. And then at the end, the celebration, they get down to Ponca and are able to do horseback riding, shooting, swimming, hiking, all of that, and then we bring them back up to camp. So great time there. How do you see it? Switch it. So here's some of it. Our biggest trek last year, we had 32 campers. So plus our guide, our two guides. So we had two-man canoes. We did end up with one injury, so I did have to pull a canoe out and had one 3-man canoe. So here's the trek as it is. So again, we're leaving from the Boy Scout camp on that next morning. So they come in on Sunday. Monday they're going to leave. During the morning they do some class work on what does it mean to do leave no trace camping. What does their trek look like? We do have them fill out a float plan, so they get that opportunity to understand what a float plan looks like and how that gets turned in and why that is so important. We talk about buddy boats. They always have to have a buddy boat with them, so one boat is always watching another. We put one guide in the front and one guide in the back, so if anybody starts to straggle behind, we can make sure they stay close together. But they also have their radios for safety as well, and they're talking to base camp. So as a trek director, I don't actually go on the trek. I'm up in camp watching the weather, keeping track with the National Park Service to make sure they make their checkpoints on time, monitoring if anybody has an injury. I can get to anybody pretty quickly, beyond what is normal medical, first aid that they can handle. So again, leaving from the scout camp, they're going to pull out here at Midway Beach. Maybe we'll pretend. There it is. They pull out here at Midway Beach, portage up to that parking lot to go around. We do encourage them to look at those pictures of the dam and see how much water is flowing out, and we talk about those flow rates and why that's important to pay attention to when you're paddling. The first trek, it was a beautiful week. 2 weeks before that, the water levels were relatively low and calm. The second week, we had a great big rainstorm the day before they left, and we had one the day after they left while they were on after their first day, and it really changed the current of the river. So they found out that things can change rapidly on the Missouri. We do use the Chief White Crane boat launch there just on the other side of the river or the dam in order to get them back in. It's a nice portage site. Everybody can reload the canoe in, get out onto the river pretty safely there. If they are paddling quickly, which our first group did, they were able to stop at Green Island and do a little bit of hiking before they went on to camp for the night. The second group, moving that many boats, they did not get a chance to stop and look at anything. They did talk about the bridges, and our guides can stop and talk about some of those things too, or pull all the boats together to talk about some of the historical pieces of the river and the scenery that they're seeing, and then the bridges as well. I also, in our Google Earth, which all of our leaders get beforehand so that they can go through this with their scouts, the red hearts on our Google map are places where they can get off if there's a medical emergency, if we have an inclement weather coming in. So our guides know where the emergency pull-offs are, and our leaders that would do any driving would know where it is if we needed emergency personnel. We also tell them that if you want to use a restroom that night, take a break there, because the rest of the time they're not. I can't thank the Foleys enough for this one. They allow us to camp on Rush Island for the scouts. So that right where that little marker is, right at the tree line, is where the scouts camped that night. So they're able to pull the canoes up the beach quite a ways in case there is inclement weather, which again there was on our second trek, and they knew to flip all the canoes over so everything wasn't soaked, and they were able to take shelter in that tree line, so it worked out pretty well. It's a great first stop for them, because if they do have any issues that first night, they're fairly easy to get to. And again, our leaders have a couple of radios, so they radio in, tell us where they are, what time they got there, and when they're about to leave. They can text us off those radios and let us know that they are leaving, so we know when they're actually on the water versus when they're walking around. The scouts said they had a great time. They walked around the island. They looked for some plover nests. They were able to be in the trees. The ticks weren't too bad, unlike Goat Island, so they were able to get in there. And from the conservation side, we talk a lot about the regrowing of some of the cottonwood trees and that, so they're very, very cognizant of watching out for those young saplings to make sure they're not trampling them. They cooked on the beach that night. They had hamburgers. A couple of the kids went fishing, caught a couple fish, so they had a good time. They threw them back. I do have the Bow Creek emergency location if there was inclement weather that could offer them some protection, so we do have that on there as well, but again, that isn't just an emergency location. They don't actually go in unless there is that piece. They do stop at Myron Grove on the next morning, right around lunchtime. So they have their trail lunch at the Myron Grove boat ramp. We do a water and garbage pickup at that point. So any trash that they've collected, we're not taking that down the river or risking it getting into the river. We're making sure that we get that picked up for them. We do a water switch. The National Park Service does not recommend that we even filter the water out of there. They asked us to please portage water to them. So we do that. So we do a water switch at that point, garbage pickup at that point, and again, any medical needs that need to be taken care of, I can handle there. And this is also where we meet the National Park Service sometimes, or they meet us on Goat Island. It kind of depends on the day. It's fun when they meet us there because then they can talk about the river. As we did find out, if the water is running high or it's right after a storm, getting into Myron Grove can sometimes be a challenge, especially with a large number of boats. They had to pull pretty hard to get in, and that is actually our only injury from this year. We had a scout leader pull her shoulder trying to get into the boat ramp. At Goat Island, this year they did a lot of beach cleanup with the National Park Service. The timing was such that with that big storm that night before, they had to go do a bunch of monitoring of some other places. So they had them do some beach cleanup. They did get a chance to count plover nests on the one side of Goat Island. They walked the island a little bit to see where they're thinking the trail and the campsites are going to be going. And then our hope is that this year we'll be able to help start getting some of those trails started with them. It was a great opportunity for them to talk about it. Some of the scouts came back and said they talked about what it's like to work for the Park Service, what some of the jobs they are. So it's a great career opportunity for them to work directly with those rangers. Again, Clay County Park is really an emergency stop. They did use it as a restroom stop because again, there are no facilities on Goat Island. So they did stop and do some cleanup that next morning before they headed down. Mulberry Bend, they use as their lunch stop. If they have extra time or just need to stretch their legs, they can also go up to the overlook and take a look up there, look at some of the historical sites. But our camp spot is actually the Bolton boat ramp. Believe it or not, we got 34 people camping in that little space right there. They found that there was access right along the river. They were able to work around the parking lot. They got to talk to a couple of stand-up paddle boarders that joined them one night. And then our staff comes out and does a program and ice cream social that night. So it's a fun way after that hard section of the river just to kind of rest. It also only puts them about 10 miles out of Ponca, which is great because Ponca likes us to be there between that 11, 12 o'clock range so that they have time to go horseback riding. They can do some mountain biking, fishing, some shooting sports. And so with our bigger groups getting into Ponca early the next day is good for them to be able to take advantage of that. So they get basically a day and a half at Ponca to do all of those fun things, and then we pick them up and bring them back to camp for the closing that night. So it ends up being a 5-day trek down the river by the time we get them back. They're tired, they're sore, but they've had a great time and gotten to do quite a few things while they were out there. Again, this will be our 20th year celebration of it being of the trek, which is great. Let's see, I think we're on, oh, that one. Let me get back here.
Down in the bottom right, this button.
Okay, so there is there's our bigger trek. You can see how many boats we're on. In 2024, we have 4 trek dates scheduled at this point. Registration is now open, so for any of you that might work with a scouting unit and want to encourage them to think about the trek, you do have to be 14 or older to go on the trek by BSA standards. This is at that Bolton boat ramp. You can see they have our nice little camping tents, and we can thank Shields for donating those to us this year. So we have these nice small open air tents that work really well on the river. There's some pictures of them portaging or figuring out how to portage from Midway Beach up. Some staff positions for 2024. Again, staff positions just opened up, and I'll have Aaron come up and talk about that just a little bit. But trek director, so my job, needs to be 21 or older. And really you are responsible for all of the logistics. That is what the trek director is doing, is taking care of those water stops, packing food, medical needs, working with the National Park Service. Because it is a group, I do need to fill out a group permit, and that has to be filed with NPS. And last year was kind of the first year. I think we got through some of the hurdles of that. It's not a difficult form to fill out, but it does help them, and it's similar to a float plan. So we attach that float plan with that permitting process. We're also looking for some trail guides, which is on the river, actually helping them get downriver, and the assistant guide, the person who sits in the back and makes sure nobody falls behind. Lifeguards, we're always in need of lifeguards down at the beach, both on camp and on the trek. And then canoe and kayak merit badge counselors. You guys have a wealth of experience and knowledge about canoeing and kayaking, and we have young scouts that are eager to learn. And learning on the Missouri River is a challenge. And so having really good canoe and kayak merit badge counselors helps us give those scouts a really good experience and gets them to be enthusiastic about both canoeing and kayaking. I'm going to have Aaron come up and introduce himself, because he's actually the full-time person. I'm only the make-believe person. And he's also going to talk about the facilities that we have that the Canoe and Kayak Association might want to use for their future trainings or meetings as well. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Aaron Collins. I'm the program director for the Sioux Council with the Boy Scouts of America. I also manage the Lewis and Clark Scout Reservation during the summer and year-round. So some of the facilities that we have available, we have 434 acres, which is Lewis and Clark. Some of the facilities, we have the new Davy Jones Nature Center. It's got a museum and a classroom tied together with it. With that, we also have 6 pavilions that are adjacent, 4 that are up at the top of the hill, and then 2 that are below near the water. We also have a dining hall that seats 280 comfortably with a commercial kitchen. So we have all sorts of facilities that you guys can use. Cost roughly $150 per day for the dining hall, and then it's $125 per day for the Davy Jones Museum. We've also got a bunch of new construction projects happening at camp. I'd say in the last year and a half, we've put just over $1.8 million into the property. So we've got a lot of upgrades, a lot of new things that are happening. We're expanding our jet ski program. We're expanding our ATV program. We're just making sure that the scouts have events and activities that they enjoy and that we're bringing them to camp. Is there any questions about camp? Wonderful. If you guys look to rent camp, some things that you guys will need are hold harmless agreement, our camp usage agreement, and then a proof of insurance. And if you guys look towards renting camp, I'm always available to do tours. If it's not me, it'll be the ranger down at camp. His name is Paul. He'll walk you through everything, kind of what it looks like. We are in the middle of remodeling the dining hall where the kitchen and everything is, but it should be ready to go and operational again in April. It's just more of we're redoing the floor for the first time in 32 years. So we just want to make sure that everything works, and everything functions, and that we can provide for everyone this summer. Thank you.
Okay, Aaron?
Yes.
How many campsites, or are there campsites available, and if someone would want to, like our group would want to go and have an event there, how does the camping part work?
So there are 14 campsites. They are all laid out through the bluffs of the Missouri. Our camp has got change in elevation pretty rapidly. But there's 14 campsites. There's 8 on the west side and 6 on the east side. There's shower houses and bathrooms that have flushing toilets, firewood, everything is provided. It all just depends on the group size that you guys have. We have campsites that hold 100 people. We have campsites that hold 30 people. So it really just all depends on what you're looking for. Any other questions?
Could you talk about those positions that are open, maybe like hours, dates, pay?
So summer camp runs from June 2nd to July 22nd. The truck director position traditionally is about $500 to $550 a week, depending solely on experience. You will have to go to National Camping School, which is a separate training that really breaks out like what to expect on a trek, how to lead a trek, things that may not be ordinary on a trek, like just how to do a float plan. It breaks out everything that you need to do. When it comes to lifeguards, it's typically, because they're on the water and it is a high risk area at Lewis and Clark, they're making anywhere from $250 to $300 a week. Usually you have to be at least 16 years old. The assistant truck director, it really just depends. Last year we had someone that was assistant director for like $450 a week. It really just all depends on the experience and how many weeks you're there. Currently we have 1 week filled for 2024. So right now the trek is only 1 week long, but it's still early. We had people join the trek March and April for 2023. So there's plenty of time for them to join the trek. So. Any other questions?
What about the guide, assistant guide, I think was position, and a merit badge position?
The merit badge counselor positions, teaching at the waterfront, they're kind of both a lifeguard and an instructor when it comes to teaching the merit badges. We had our lifeguards also teach the canoeing and kayaking, and that's around the $250, $300 range per week. And then the assistant guide, we didn't have one this summer with the trek being smaller the first week, and then we had fill-in staff the second week. So they were staff that we already had put on camp that we shifted to making them done trek. So ballpark for any and all staff for the Missouri River High Adventure Base is between 600 and 300 between all the positions.
How many days is the trek again?
It starts Monday around noon and it ends Thursday around 4 o'clock at Ponca, and then you go from Ponca State Park all of the rest of Thursday into Friday, and then you come back to camp Friday morning. Friday afternoon by lunch.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, I'll let Michelle take over, and we're going to talk about the 220th Lewis and Clark excursion. Whoa.
Okay, so with there being so many anniversaries this year, we decided we were going to do a big anniversary paddle event. So we're talking about the 220th anniversary of Lewis and Clark, the 20th anniversary of Mr. Hab. It's also the 70th anniversary of the Outdoor Code in Scouting, which is our big outdoor ethics program. So with all of those things, we thought it would be fun to do a paddle event for our fall camporee. And so the Lewis and Clark Scout Reservation will be hosting Lewis and Clark Days, August 30th to September 1st, with the paddle day being August 31st. And it'll be a celebration of canoeing and kayaking in the river throughout that whole camp weekend. The registration fee is going to be $35. And it'll be a day paddle on the Missouri River and an evening celebration at Lewis and Clark. So launching from Springfield, the trip would be about 20 miles. to avoid the delta, because if we think about August, the water levels can sometimes be kind of low. Also being an introductory sort of trip, scouts may not have all of the skills necessary to make a long trek on a single day. So we're looking at that 20-mile trek. Transportation to and from and between the boat launch site and scout camp will be available to participants. So we'll have ways to move boats and people. Programming at the scout camp will include some animal identification, so furs and skulls. We'll do a Dutch oven cooking class, a geology hike. The bluffs are beautiful. We actually had a couple fossils come out of the bluff this last year as it broke off. We had a big section of the cliff came down. The Davy Jones Museum of Natural History will be open, and then we also have our new little lake, which is stocked with fish, and we can pull the paddle boards out as well. So some paddle boarding and fishing on the pond that's there. All the information for that will be on the SiouxCouncil.org. And if anybody would like to join in that, we're going to have some outside people able to come in and join that event, and it'll be a great way for you to meet some of the scouts and see some of the great things that we're doing at the scout camp. So save the date. We're going to have some Lewis and Clark days out at the scout camp. I want to leave you with the image of that single canoe on the Missouri River. Was a great way to think about how scouting has evolved, how we can instill an appreciation with young people for the river and the power of the river. It was really a great summer last year for us to be out there, to revamp the Mr. Hab Trek, to have so many people join. And again, I'm hoping that we can continue the cooperative with the South Dakota Canoe and Kayak Association to continue to get feedback and be able to expand our offerings to not just the lower section, but to be able to also open up the upper section. We're also looking at improving our sailing program. We do have some sailboats at camp, and we want to be able to get them out on the river as well, not just day sailing, but actually have an overnight sail program and bring that back. For those that were in scouting 15, 20 years ago, you'll know we had several live-aboard sailboats that went away for a while, and now they're coming back. So we hope to continue to expand those programmings and get kids out on the river. I'll leave you with that. Any questions? Great. Turn it back over.